We have a live shot from Daytona Beach. This is where our Gail Pascal Brown has been located for you today. You saw her just a few minutes ago. She was live on our air and she was getting tossed around pretty bad. And she was saying, do not come out, even though, you may want to, or you may have some stuff you think you need to do. It is just not worth it. And she said that it was pretty consistent with the rain and the wind. And she was saying it is only going to get worse. And you can see that wind and rain is just blowing around. We also have been getting some video in from Naples. Take a look at this. We have video of a firehouse that was flooded. Look at these first responders walking through. The water is up to their legs. Not quite waist deep, but look at the truck. That is a fire truck that is underwater. This is deep floodwaters, and this is what we've been saying, and this is what we've been anticipating with this storm. It is not only a rainmaker and a windmaker, but also they are expecting storm surges. And so this is from Naples, where they were seeing really high storm surges. I believe Tony said it was something like 6 feet. Was it more than that? I believe it was at least 6 feet. Also, this storm made landfall originally before Florida in Cuba. And so that was the first place it made landfall as a Category 3. Originally, we were telling you after it hit, the entire island was without power. There was like more than 1 million people, but now we're being told the lights are coming back on in Cuba tonight. The power was knocked out as we said, as this Category 3 hit. Tonight, they said they've begun restoring power to 3 regions here. They're activating 2 large power plants. Havana and other parts of western Cuba, though, they do remain without power. So this is going to be an ongoing recovery effort for them. We will stay on top of the situation in Cuba as well as here in Florida.
From WESH 2, this is continuing coverage of Ian.
Now at 8 o'clock, now is the time to hunker down as Hurricane Ian takes its toll on Florida. We want to give you a live look right now at the wind and rain in Punta Gorda over in Charlotte County. Look at those trees blowing in the wind gusts.
And that is where the storm made landfall 5 hours ago and is making its advance here on Central Florida. We know that WESH 2 is here to keep you and your family safe. We have team coverage all evening with no commercial breaks.
First, we want to get an update on Hurricane Ian from our first warning weather team. We have Alex Alisi and Chief Meteorologist Tony Manalfi standing by. So, Tony, it's 8 o'clock, so that means we should have another update. What can you tell us?
Yeah, we do, and this one's a big one. We now have a Category 3 hurricane as Ian is continuing to weaken. Winds at 115 miles an hour. That pressure continues to rise, 960 millibars, and that forward speed still coming in at about 8 miles an hour to the northeast. Now, let's check that location there. That movement as we superimpose the cone. Take a look at the radar. It may be on the eastern side of the envelope, so it may be more towards the northeast here. We'll have to watch the trends on that. We've been kind of noting maybe just on the right side of that track, and that could be important because that would mean a further shift of those heavier, stronger winds off towards the south. One of the things we're going to be watching, though, on the back side of our storm, of course, are those surge potential. We got warnings up to the north. We're going to take you up towards Palm Coast here, and some of the areas we look at when we're talking about flooding when we get towards the coast along A1A, just to the north of Palm Coast as we drill it in from Marineland on the north side of Palm Coast there, just to the west of A1A. We tend to get some issues there with the streams in the river up that way. Over towards Astor, inland Volusia County, as we'll pull it off towards the south and the west. We've talked about Astor many times, and you can see there's Pearson, there's Astor. We get out of the lake there, sometimes some issues with a rise and some storm surge there because of winds and potential heavy rain. That's we're going to be watching very, very carefully. Down towards New Smyrna Beach as we continue to tackle the surge issues here. You can see as we head towards New Smyrna Beach, in and around those inlets, as we get those openings there along the coast, the water sometimes driven on in. That'll be another area that we have to watch. Down to Bethune Beach. To Brevard County we head as we get towards the Indian and Banana River. We sometimes get some issues up here over towards the Mosquito Lagoon, and then of course very close to the Kennedy Space Center. Sometimes we have some issues there as well. South of Cocoa Beach, I think we're going to be okay. We'll watch the situation with the cone and the track going forward. 255 miles across. You can see the movement more towards the northeast, not so much the northeast, so we'll watch the trends on that because that'll make a a significant difference in what's going to be happening with the strongest winds across central Florida. 116.5 miles now from the northern tip there of Brevard County. Take a look at the strongest winds right in here. The alarms that were going off, we've got flood warnings now for a good chunk of central Florida extending north and east of here. We're getting out of the Tampa Bay radar range now, but we know that we have some intense winds here around the center of that circulation. The eye is filling on in, so it's not as distinctive, so we'll continue to watch that. All across the Florida Peninsula, look at these wind gusts, 30, 40, 50, 55 miles an hour, and you can see sustained winds now in that 25 to 40 mile an hour range with some recent wind gusts, 46 in Orlando, 46 in Palm Bay. I wanted to show you futurecast here real quick. Look at all the rain wrapping around Ian as it continues to lift off towards the northeast. By the time we get to 5 a.m., that center of circulation will be lifting up towards New Smyrna Beach and then offshore. Conditions should be improving by the time we get to 6, 7, and 8 o'clock here in central Florida.
All right, Alex, thank you. We do have a little bit of an update for you out of Volusia County. So due to the high winds that we're seeing, they're closing all bridges across the Halifax River. They said they're going to reopen once the Florida Department of Transportation inspects them because they want to make sure everything is structurally safe. They also want to remind everybody over there in the Daytona Beach area to stay indoors just because it's too dangerous right now to go outside.
Usually 40 miles an hour or so, they just say no to any vehicle traffic, and it just kind of makes sense because those winds are a little bit crazy. So when we started tracking Ian, it originally was going to make a beeline to Tampa. That's what the early projection said. Thankfully for the people in Tampa, it didn't do that. It actually tracked farther south.
That's right. But we still sent a crew over there because they still have seen some major impacts today. Dave McDaniel has been monitoring the conditions for us. And Dave, you have moved locations a couple of times, and where you are now in Ybor City, you've seen some debris all throughout the roads.
Well, and it's really picking up, as you might mention. You know, when they talked about a storm of this size, this magnitude, whether it hit Tampa, whether it hit south of Tampa, north of Tampa, a good part of Florida was going to be impacted, and that's certainly what we're seeing as I've been listening to some of my colleagues and how things are picking up over there in central Florida in our home turf. Certainly here in Tampa, it's also wind is blowing harder. The rain is coming down harder. There's all kinds of things going on here in Ybor City, except for any really people. The only really folks who have been going up and down here has been the Tampa Police Department. Occasionally somebody will go through here kind of wanting to look around, see exactly what's going on. But for the most part, it looks like people are heeding the advice and not being out and about. Very few people have been coming through here. This area of Tampa still has power, even though we know there are power outages all over Florida. Right now, in this area, which was the evacuation zone C, we still have electricity, and electricity really makes all the difference. And it's interesting too, anybody who's ever been in a wind event, it's interesting how a town can almost talk to you in a windstorm. As the wind whips down the street or whips between the buildings, it's almost like a moaning, like an eerie Halloween movie. As the wind picks up, the town gets louder. You hear this woo, stuff like that. We had a little of that a little bit ago. Right now it's a little bit calmer, but certainly we expect conditions here to continue to actually deteriorate, even though Ian is moving away. As that wind whips around, it's going to be bringing plenty of business here in the Tampa area. Just it really speaks to the power of this storm. I recently had a problem with a swimming pool, and I know how long it took to get rid of 10,000 gallons of water. So imagine a bay water sucked out of it by a storm. It's just, again, light stuff that's easy to pick up. What's not going to be known until all of this shakes out going through central Florida is actually how many large things are going to come down, how much truly big debris that we're going to have.
Okay, thank you so much. Dave McDaniel live in the Tampa area for us. Thank you so much.
Yeah, Dave talked about Irma, and one of my lasting memories of that storm is from exactly in the same place that he was talking about, that I-4, State Road 436 area, Cranes Roost Park. If you've ever been there, and you've probably been there, and you've walked around that lake, the lake is actually not a lake. It's a storm runoff overflow area. It's designed for flood control. And during Irma, it flooded. and it backed up all the way to the interstate and went under a couple of drainage ditches onto the other side and flooded a neighborhood on the other side of I-4. And it was actually kind of mind-blowing because all these systems that had been in place for years that had functioned properly somehow failed miserably in that. And as we move forward into this, add the I-4 Ultimate project on top of all of that, and things have changed here, and they have not been tested in ways that a hurricane can test something. I mean, this is a major test for a lot of neighborhoods in Central Florida, and I anticipate that we'll see some flooding here that has never happened before. I also anticipate, hopefully, that some areas that had some problems will be better, even though that we're talking like a foot to 2 feet of rain in some places.
Yeah, hopefully we made some improvements. Hopefully we learned some lessons. I was going to say the one area that stuck out in my mind, do you remember Orlo Vista?
Yeah.
They were underwater. I remember we had our crews out there and they were rescuing people from water that just rushed right in. And they were taking them out in truckloads because they were just flooding.
Yeah. Nanika, before you go, this time of night where you are is usually pretty quiet. Oh, well, let's move on to this. How about that?
Yeah, that's fine. We'll get back to Anika. There's plenty of time.
Plenty of time for all of my questions. But this is our team of reporters that are out across much of Central Florida who are covering Hurricane Ian for us tonight.
Yeah, so we have people coast to coast because that's who's going to see the effects of Hurricane Ian. Everybody from coast to coast in all of Florida. So we do want to get to our team of reporters in Orange County. We have Darren Stoltzfus. He's putting on his news hat today instead of his sports hat. He is at the Orange County EOC. We want to thank you so much for stepping in here, Darren. This is all hands on deck for emergency management officials, but also for us here in the news world. Tell us how they're preparing in Orange County.
Yeah, hey there, Michelle. I'm okay with this one because I'm dry now, so it's okay. I heard Anika earlier. The Emergency Operations Center, they're planning on staying throughout the night. Jerry Demings, the mayor, of course, here, also with other officials from around the area and from the state here, just observing things, making sure everything is staying okay. He said, be prepared if you live in Orange County to lose power. So that's something that you need to be aware of. Have a plan in place. And if you do lose power, be conscious of the amount of water that you use. Now that's something they're not concerned about, the drinking water at this point. They do feel like the systems are in place, that they will stay, the flow will be fine. You just need to be cognizant of how much electricity it does take to power the water to your home. So once you lose power, once you get it back, just be mindful of what you're using, the washing machine, everything that's a high intensity, high energy consumer. Think about that before you use it. At this point, he said earlier tonight, there were about 1,100 people in Orange County that were in shelters across the county. Now, there are several that are in place that you can go to. You can find that information on WESH.com. If you are looking for a pet-friendly shelter, that would be Apopka High School or Timber Creek High School. Make sure you take a crate for your friend. That is important if you're going to a pet-friendly shelter. But there are options if you do not feel safe. There were no mandatory evacuations in this county. They did go to some of the mobile home parks, to some of the prefabricated homes, and suggested that they go to the shelters around the county if that was a spot you were in or a low-lying area, but there were no mandatory evacuations. Basically, the order is just please stay at home. It's a shelter-in-home suggestion, not a shelter-in-home mandate. There is no curfew. There is nothing like that. It's just please be smart, be safe, and stay in your home. But as you said, like Jim mentioned, the I-4 Express, there are so many things that have changed in the last few years. This is going to be a huge stress test, especially over the next few hours. And as this intensifies, the worst is yet to come. The mayor did stress that several times tonight. It will be difficult at times. So be prepared, have a plan. Don't use candles unless you have to. Use battery-operated things. You know, try to be smart and be safe because it could be a while if the emergency officials need to get to you. They will respond, but it may take a while depending on what the situation is. But for now, live in Orange County, Darren Stoltzfus will send it back to you.
All right, Darren, thank you so much. A lot of good information there. But as Darren said, the mayor said, be prepared for power outages. We have already seen power outages. We've been seeing them for hours now. And in Orange County, more than 18,000 customers currently are without power. Most of those are Duke Energy customers.
And statewide,
It's staggering.
It's 1.8 million people. It's about 7% of the population in Florida does not have power right now. And I just checked Charlotte County, where Ian made landfall this afternoon around 3 o'clock. It's almost 100% of customers. It's just a little bit shy of that. So it basically wiped out power in the county where it made landfall, which speaks to the power and the fury of what this storm had and continues to have.
And I know officials there are telling people to be patient because it's going to take a while to get everything back up and running, and of course for recovery efforts.
I just did a check, and I'm actually a little surprised at what I found. No reports of any deaths or injuries so far due to Hurricane Ian, although there are some people who called the Charlotte County Sheriff's Office saying that they were very worried at the height of the storm, and they haven't been able to get to all those homes to check on those people.
Okay, hopefully they can do that, and hopefully people are listening to the advice of the storm isn't over just when the conditions end in your area. Stay safe even after it passes. Don't go outside, and just be aware of your surroundings. Okay, we do need to get over to Chief Meteorologist Tony Manalfi. Tony, you're talking with your friends over at the National Hurricane Center who are watching Ian very closely.
Yeah, Jamie Rahm is joining us now, the acting director of the National Hurricane Center. Jamie, always good to talk to you. Jamie, a surge specialist, now the big guy down there at NHC. Jamie, first I got to ask you, looking at the surge that came in from this morning with Ian, were you a bit surprised with how much surge came in?
No, that portion of the coastline here is incredibly vulnerable to storm surge, and then you have these rivers that just kind of like funnel it, if you will. It looks like I'm not sure we've seen the full magnitude of the surge. I think the sun is going to have to come up tomorrow for us to really understand just how bad it was down there.
Yeah, that's a great point. It's hard to kind of dictate what, really assess what happened when it's occurring after the dark time. I want to come up north. I want to talk about the northern side of the storm. We talk about storm surge, and a lot of times we talk just about the coast, but we've got rivers. What is your concern for the St. Johns, and what is your concern for folks, let's say, from Marineland back down towards Flagler Beach up there in Flagler County?
Yeah, so let me switch graphics on you to really help explain it, and I apologize here, it's a little slow. So as Ian kind of moves across the Florida Peninsula and emerges back over the western Atlantic, back over water on the day Friday, the flow begins to turn around like this and basically shove the ocean back up into the St. Johns River. And then when you combine all that heavy rainfall, I mean, we're looking at 10 to 20 inches of rain potential in some of these bands, that water falls into the St. Johns River, and then it wants to flow out into the ocean or dump out into the ocean, but it can't because the storm surge has come in. And so when those two collide, the St. Johns River typically comes up out of its banks and floods the surrounding areas.
So what is your message to folks that live there along the river? What would you tell them?
You know, it's the same message that we've been saying to everyone. Check to see if you're in an evacuation zone. People don't realize this, but there's actually hurricane evacuation zones along the St. Johns River. And check to see if you've been ordered to evacuate. And if you have, follow whatever local instructions given to you. We're probably starting to run out of time, though. I'm guessing now with this heavy rain really starting to switch back to the radar. This heavy rain really starting to develop out ahead of the storm. So make sure if you are going to leave that it's safe to do so.
So the message is the same then for folks that live along the coast as opposed to those that live along the river, correct?
Yeah, I mean, we have evacuation zones along the St. Johns River, so people need to know, just like the rest of Floridians, what letter they're in, which zone they're in, and then if evacuations have been ordered, follow those evacuations.
We want to get back to the coast. They were talking about the coast, the coastal conditions, and Daytona Beach, busy place all the time.
Yeah, and we've seen Gail. She's been stationed out there, and the conditions have been bad over by the coast, and we've had two things happen within the last hour. The curfew went into effect in Volusia County. Also, all of the bridges across the Halifax have now been shut down. Let's get out live to Gail. Gail, how are you doing out there?
I'm still here. I'm still here. Can you hear me?
Yeah,
We can
got
hear
you,
you, Gail. How you doing
yeah,
out
we
there?
can see you. You got the top down.
Hey,
Things are looking
sweetheart,
good.
Hey, listen, this is live TV. You know this is how we do it. Sometimes you get the audio, sometimes you don't. But you know what? You're going to always have the pictures. And that's what we're seeing right here. Some incredible wind, incredible rain. If you're not beaten by wind, rain, you get hit by sand here in Daytona Beach. We're off Atlantic Avenue here. And I'm just waiting to see if that sign is going to loosen up even more, because it's been dancing in the wind for some time. But you know, the best part about being in Daytona Beach is meeting some of the locals. Come on over here, Dave. Come on over here, Alden. Now, Dave has been living here since 1985. He's gone through hurricanes, and he says that he knows about hurricanes. Alden, born and raised here, young man. What do you think of this storm?
Just another storm.
Just another
major.
storm? I got beat up by some wind and rain. What are you talking about?
This is nothing here.
How many storms have you been through, young man?
Too many to count.
Really? Dave's kind of the same way. And 1985, we're talking about which hurricanes you are most memorable. And how do you compare this to Ian?
The most memorable is probably Charlie, and this is kind of coming the same path. That did a lot of destruction in Daytona Beach. And, of course, we had two more after that just destroyed us. So this is nothing.
Your sentiments are the same.
This is nothing.
Well, what about tomorrow?
Tomorrow's another day. We'll be fine.
You'll be fine.
We're used to it.
Now, if rain is a factor, and of course, you know, with the Volusia County Emergency Management officials, stay off the beaches, because the surf can get really high and it can become dangerous.
Oh, me and Olin are going to go surfing tomorrow.
You are not. Do
Yes,
not be a bad influence here. Don't be a bad influence here.
Don't go in the ocean. It's too mean.
Yeah.
Stay safe.
Yeah.
Stay safe.
What other advice would you give folks at this point? Because a lot of folks are already sheltered in place.
I would say sheltered in place. Do not come to the beach side. If you're on the mainland, stay your property until the storm's over. You can always rebuild. You can't rebuild a life, but you can rebuild your home.
And that's a concern that even with emergency management officials are the tornadoes that could spawn off here, because that is what wreaks really a lot of damage for a lot of folks. And you don't even think about that. I'm more afraid of the tornadoes, and I've been covering them even in North Carolina, than I am of the hurricane.
Your name is Gale, isn't it?
Yes, it is. They don't name them after me because I'm a whole gale wind.
Let's go get some gale force winds.
He wants to go get some gale force winds. Okay, folks, we're going to run out here. I'm going to show this kid a thing or two that I can withstand all of it. Anyway, reporting live in Volusia County, I'm Gail Pascal Brown, WESH 2 News. Let's do this.
Where Gail goes, that's just and off they go.
And I think the combination of Gail and Volusia County is epic, because we always meet the best characters out in Volusia County.
Sure do.
Yeah.
It's chock full of them.
We do want to get over to Brevard County. We have WESH 2's Christina Watkins. Christina was getting pounded by some wind before. Christina, where are you? I forget. Which park are you at? Is it Sand Lake? Is that what it was called?
We're at Sandpoint Park. Sandpoint Park, and that wind is starting to pick up yet again. Not as strong as it was about an hour ago when we checked in, but it is continuously getting stronger from time to time. Sometimes it slows down. Mostly that happens when we go back into the car to shelter in place. But it's like as soon as we step outside, hello, here we are yet again. You can take a better look at that just by seeing some of the trees here blowing. That is how strong conditions are getting at Titusville Marina here at Sandpoint Park. The water is splashing up, and some of the boats actually floated up to the edge of the Titusville Marina, and they were just rocking because of the wind. Before we got here, though, I want you to see what we were seeing. We shot some video from earlier today. These are some of the on and off conditions that we are seeing here in Brevard County. This is at Port St. John boat ramp. This is the water here you were looking at from the Indian River, that surge. It was just splashing up into the parking lot. For a lot of people, they are considering this like a splash zone, something you'd see at a theme park. But no, let me tell you, that is absolutely not the case. It is not safe. Emergency leaders want you to stay home as they monitor these conditions from the Emergency Operations Center. That is where we started our day once we got here to Brevard County. We wanted to check in first, get the latest up-to-date information, to bring that up to you, to get an idea on what they are monitoring, some of the conditions they are seeing. But if you are choosing to be out and about right now, and God forbid something happen, it's too dangerous for them, which means it's too dangerous for you. Stay home. We're going to bring you information. Eventually, we will head back to the EOC. We know that they are changing shifts right now because they are working 24 hours around the clock monitoring all of these conditions. So once we get back over there, we're going to check in with some of the law enforcement agencies to get an update on conditions across Brevard County. We did hear about some street flooding, some neighborhood flooding earlier today, a few hours ago. No reports of any water in people's homes so far. Not ideal, guys. Come on. Stay home.
That's good enough for that.
All right, Christina, we're back here live in the studio. We don't need to see any of that tonight. Hurricane Ian created the possibility for tornadoes here in Central Florida. We saw some warnings all throughout the morning.
We'll see some more for sure. All right, so we've been trying to find you different scenes that are taking place in Central Florida today. Want to start with one in Fort Myers. This is a rescue. And here we go. Okay, so this. Yeah, you're seeing, actually this one you're seeing as I'm seeing, and that is really an unpleasant situation inside somebody's house, but the water is way up high. There was a man trapped inside this house, and you can see when he and then down, that's just not a good situation at all.
No, that is all of his belongings floating. Look at how high is inside of his home. You could tell that that is kind of a balcony overlooking a lower level.
Yeah, it's kind of gnarly water too.
Yeah, he probably didn't expect that. We also have some video that we'd like to show you now. That's actually a picture that someone sent us, and I think you'll enjoy it. This is a dog named Ava. Ava is, as you can see, is watching WESH 2 News and our continuing coverage of Hurricane Ian. We've been told that Ava, but maybe she's finding some comfort in our coverage here tonight. And I think that is that Christina that I see on the screen?
Could be.
Christina has a very calming presence about her, so I can understand why Ava here would be glued to the tube.
Yeah, I think my dogs are under the table at some place.
Really?
And, yeah, how about Olive?
Olive, she is blissfully unaware of anything that happens around her.
Oh.
Yeah, no, she has no idea what's going on.
Fabulous natural defense system right there.
Yes, no, I love her for it because I never have to worry about her.
Okay. All right, onward we go. We're continuing with Mutual of Omaha's Wild Kingdom here. A flock of flamingos sheltering in place in what appears to be a bathroom. They somehow got inside at the St. Pete Botanical Garden, and actually they were put in here because there's food for one of them. You can see there's a food dish down there, right behind the Tracking Ian banner there. That is a classic only in Florida scene that you will see.
Well, we got to protect the flamingos. You have to.
I guess we do.
You have to protect all the animals, Jim.
And do we have anything else?
I think how to watch WESH.
How to watch WESH.
Do you want to know how to watch WESH even if you lose the power?
I got some.
You have plenty of time and plenty of places to see us.
Yeah, we've been on 34 hours now, tracking Ian's path, and I think that for my money, the best way is to go to WESH.com. We have a nice, easy-to-read, cataloged system of stories on the right-hand side. You can go county by county and find information on what's happening in your neighborhood or maybe about to happen in your neighborhood. And there are different videos that we have posted there, and also the latest updates from Chief Meteorologist Tony Manalfi and Meteorologist Alex Alisi. That's all there. The WESH 2 News mobile app is also pretty strong too. As this one you might need to keep your power for, but and your Wi-Fi. But it's basically the same setup as the WESH.com. Maybe a little more simple to navigate, maybe, but has the same basic information, and it's all really good information. Then is the WESH 2 Facebook page, where we're streaming all of our content right now, and also we have a page called Very Local. It's a separate digital channel. And it is showing everything that we are showing right now. And the other thing, and hopefully you have something like this, it's a battery-operated weather radio. And if you have one, and we all have one, we swear by these, and these are just super strong. They wake you up in the middle of the night if you want, when a super warning or alert is taking place. And because they're battery operated, you lose power, and most of us maybe will be losing power at some point. You can still get alerts on fresh updates because we know the tornado threat will continue at least a little bit past the other. And then we are teaming up with Magic 107.9 107.7. They are simulcasting everything that we say, and in a perfect world, it would be everything that we see, but they're radio, and they don't do that way. But we're thankful for that partnership that we have with Magic 107.7. So if you do lose your digital visual link to us, you can always hear us on that radio station.